Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Show Me the Way is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. Today on Show Me the Way, I'm honored to share the story of a very special guest, Connie Nagy, who was referred to me by Christine Ankenbauer. Connie is a fellow Michigander, a respiratory therapist, a wife, and a mother who has faced the unimaginable. Connie's younger child, her only son, was a high school student who loved being in the band, playing video games, and spending time with family. He was a sweet, smart kid who showed love to those around him and regularly shared stories and conversations with his family. Tragically, one day after school, and after failing a big math test, he took his own life. Looking back, Connie reflects that there may have been signs of anxiety, lack of sleep, and possibly depression that were closer to the surface than she realized at the time. But many of these struggles are things parents often see as teens navigate the challenges of high school. For Connie and her family, her husband, daughter, and son-in-law, the loss was shocking and heartbreaking. In the midst of unimaginable grief, Connie chose to honor her son by turning her pain into purpose. She has become a passionate advocate for suicide prevention, sharing her family's story, speaking to students, appearing on stages, displaying yellow ribbons, and fundraising to spread awareness. Connie reminds teens that there are 100+ reasons to stay, even when life feels overwhelming. Her mission is simple but powerful. If her message helps even one person choose to keep going, she knows it will make a difference. She has already seen the impact through messages from people who've connected with her story on social media, reminding them that they are not alone. Connie and her family have also started a foundation to continue spreading awareness and providing support. She encourages listeners to visit their social media pages for more information, and most importantly, to remember that no one has to face their struggles alone. This episode is emotional, powerful, and deeply important. Connie's courage in sharing her story is helping bring light to a topic that needs more conversation, compassion, and understanding. Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. I can't begin to tell you how much I'm enjoying this whole process and creating this platform for people to share their stories. I've met so many amazing people, and as we continue to grow together, guests have also started introducing me to people they know. Christine Ankenbauer was a guest that I had on a couple of weeks ago. She's a beautiful soul, and our connection was definitely something you've heard me say a few times, a God wink. I know that we were meant to meet. After her time on the show, she received a lot of positive feedback, and she's really helped grow our listeners as well as our guest list. She's introduced me to a couple of amazing women, and one of them is today's guest, Connie Nagy. Connie is a respiratory therapist like Christine, and Connie tragically lost her son to suicide during his high school years. An unfathomable situation that I'm sure will not be easy to share, but she has turned the horrible situation into a little bit of a brighter one by honoring him with true advocacy. Connie's created a website, an organization. There's a Facebook page where she shares her story and creates a safe place for people that go through similar situations. The work that she and her family are doing is making a huge difference. Connie, thank you so much for being here. I truly am so grateful that you are open to the Show Me the Way podcast and to share your family's story.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really welcome the opportunity to talk about the experience and honestly to get the word out there. I feel like I have a lot that I can share about it. And I've been married and with my husband since I was 20. So it's been like 36 years. And I also have another daughter. She's 31 and I have 3 grandchildren. And we just we spend a lot of time. We're a close family. And yeah.
And you work with Christine?
I do
Or you
work
did
with
work-
Christine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I do. And yep, in fact, she's the one who introduced me to you. And it was
Yes.
kind of just like, hey, I know this girl who does these podcasts, and she's telling me how she thought, you'll be great for it. And then you just messaged me, and then here we are. So really,
Right.
yeah, I think it's great.
And I see you had a little four-legged friend walking around you too. So
Yeah, a couple cats.
a couple of cats. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, you live in Michigan like me, and I was commenting that you can't see, but Connie's wearing a U of M jacket because she works for a U of M, and we are huge U of M fans over here.
Yes, we are.
Actually, Just last week, I interviewed my niece who lives in Ohio, and she is going to Ohio State for college.
Oh,
But
you're
that's
like,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, we still love her.
that's right. They'll be rivals during football,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Football
Yep.
season.
Yep. Well, Connie, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, Christine, I don't know. Some people just come into your life and really make a difference. And I've never met her in person, but we had a beautiful conversation. And ever since then, she's like, oh, I thought of this person. I thought of that person. And it really lends to what I'm trying to do with this show.
Yeah,
Everybody has a story, everybody has one.
for
And
sure.
it's really great to be able to talk and to remind people that they're not alone when they're going through this thing called life. So I'm so grateful that you were open. You immediately responded and you opened up to me, and I just really appreciate that. So we're really happy to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm
Of
glad to be
course.
here.
Of course. Thank you. So I shared a little bit before we pressed record here and before with Connie that I have two boys, and as my listeners know, my younger son, who's now 16, when he was 5, was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And my husband and I had never heard of that. We didn't have anything like that in our family. And the plan that we thought, because we're like you, we got married a little bit older, 23, but still, we were pretty young and pretty clueless. And we just had this plan for our lives. And we had an older son that was running before he was a year old. So we thought we are going to have two athletes, and it just didn't work out that way. Now, granted, my 16-year-old knows everything there is to know about sports, but he is
Mhm.
full time in a wheelchair. So it's just a very different perspective, a different outlook on life, a different approach to life that I had never known before. And so you've got these paths, and all of a sudden you have to pivot. You have to turn right instead of left. You have to change what that plan was. And the perspective that I've gained from him and from this experience has been huge. So I wanted to create a platform where others could do the same, tell their story, share their perspective, share their advice. And again, I think we're all meant to be with one another. People are meant to be around other people, and we want to feel like we can relate and that we're not alone. So this podcast has been really a great platform for that. I started September 2024. I'm on season 2. I've dropped a new episode every single week. And we've heard from everybody. There's been all kinds of different stories. And I just really am grateful that Connie's going to share hers. And I told her before we got on air, there's no script. So I'm just going to let her share whatever is on her heart. I know she's got a lot of perspective and advice, but also I definitely want her to promote and talk about her organization and all the work that she's doing. So I'm just going to let her speak and jump in with questions as I have them. And yeah, we'll just go from there.
Hey, I think that what's really helped me and maybe you, but I know Christine is having faith in God. That has been the one strong thing that's kept me going because I do believe, and I don't want to, get on here and talk how that needs to be something people have to have. But for me, that's what saved me, and that's how I got through it because were a traditional family. My husband, he's a machinist. My daughter went to college, did the whole thing. She's 7 years older than my son. And, like I said, we were pretty traditional. My son was in band. He took French for 3 years. He was smart. He was funny. He just the best things about him was he just had an infectious laugh. He was kind and always rooting for the underdog. There was a kid with Tourette's in school, and I remembered he was telling me how people would make fun of him and how he's like, "Oh, Mom." But he used to still invite me to go to the movies with him and his friend. We went to go see Kingsman, and his friends thought he had the funnest family, the coolest parents, and there was some envy there that I noticed from his friends because we were a tight-knit family. And my daughter used to pick him and his friends up from school and drive them home, and they were all a little slower to get their driver's license. And they weren't into drugs, or that was not considered a cool thing to them. They considered themselves the cool nerds. And so they did Brighton High School marching band, and just he was involved with solo and ensemble. He was in AP computer science. he was a pretty together kid. And then every school year, I'd have to say in high school, he would begin to lose steam after Christmas and get burdened with all the homework because there was an overwhelming amount of homework. And so he would tend to fall behind in his homework, it seemed like, which normal teenage angst, not something that I'm going to think anything different of. Behavior was online, playing games with his friends and his cousins, and he was a normal kid by all the means. You know, he even went to church on a few Wednesday nights with his one friend. So it's not like he had no introduction to God. And I don't know, he still would come home and he'd hug and kiss me, you know, at bedtime and just, um, you know, and I think what happened was his junior year, he is when everybody started planning college and the school pressures were starting to enter the scene. And, you know, I was not harsh on him in regards to his grades. I'm like, honey, it doesn't matter if you go to community college the first 2 years. He wanted to do computer animation and, um, you know, but all his other friends had their plans to go to state. And I think that played a little part in his fatigue. Then he started, unbeknownst to us, experiencing anxiety in school with his friends. Like, I'm not sure, but we only found this out after the fact that he was struggling with that and that he was not sleeping well. And like I said, we didn't find that out until afterwards. And so I know that, like I said, everything with my family was just typical stuff. And then one day it just all changed. I came home from work. He had told my husband that he had bombed a test. He had lied about it first. Then he came home, pet the dog. My husband told him that I was still at work. He said that, yeah, Dad, I did lie. I did bomb the math test. And that he said, I told you not to ever lie to me and your mom. That's the worst thing you can do. And he said, well, can you get caught up? Can you go back and get caught up on some of your homework? Yes. So he told him to go back into his room, get caught up on his homework. My husband jumped in the boat, went out on the lake and took the dog. And then my daughter and son-in-law were out on the lake too. So we all live right by each other. Um, and he shot himself in 1 hour that he was alone. And the life he led doesn't live up to what he did. It's never gonna, honestly, it's never gonna make sense to us because it, you know, still makes me cry because it's kind of hard to talk about. It's so much to try to sum up into, you know, a fast conversation of, because he was a good kid. It was like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just like when people say like, "Oh, you can look at someone and think this, this, and this." You really can't. You truly,
Mm-mm.
truly don't know. There's not one
No,
specific example of somebody that would take their lives. There's not. You
absolutely
can't sum
not.
it up. You can't sum
No.
it up.
So I suppose that the things I know, because I think most people would be interested in knowing, you know, like, did you notice any signs? So he was taking acne medicine. He had just started acne medicine before band camp. And because he started developing cystic acne, like awful cystic acne, and that the doctors told him this is systemic. You can't, topical treatments aren't going to correct this. You know, he needs to be on it, you know, medicine for this. So that's the one key thing that I can say that was different. And you know, psychotropic things can do things to young minds. Something else to mention was that when he was in fourth grade, you know, ADD runs in our family. His cousin had Asperger's, so autism and ADHD run in all the family genes. And I did have him tested through U of M back when he was in fourth grade, but they had said that because he's not like failing. Okay, failing fourth grade, he's he's not failing, but there's not a reason. But his other cousins needed to help with that, and so I also think there's tie-ins with that. Undiagnosed ADHD. That's a pretty common thing for kids to get have develop impulsive uh, tendencies. So I call it the perfect storm because I feel like he had all this pressure. His one cousin did leave and went to Purdue, and he was a few years older than him, and so he had lost some things. Also, this is what happened too, which was, I think, played a great deal. Is my stepmom was diagnosed with leukemia, so she was dying. That was sad. And I remember telling him I wanted him to play People Love the Lord on his French horn for her funeral. And I do remember he never answered me about that. And I think that was a struggle for him. And then one of his favorite YouTubers died of cancer the night before he took his life. He had come to my room and came to give me a hug and a kiss and said, "I'm sad, Mom." And I said, "Honey, what? What's going on?" He said, his favorite YouTube died. And so I feel like he had a lot of those things in running in the background of his head. He was kind of struggling with, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? As far as college, adult life, all of that. And I do believe he was still very immature in his mind. Like, yes, he was 17, but he was playful and young in his head like a 15-year-old. So, yes, you can be book smart, but then you can also be immature in all the other areas of your life. Like, how am I going to handle a job? There was just all of these things. And so, like I said, I called it the perfect storm. There was this pressure, and he started losing sleep. And his friends said, well, his one friend that did drive him to school said, I noticed he wasn't sleeping good, and that can cause depression. Well, and of course, things like that can. And then I noticed there was a drop in his playtime online, and I remembered asking him, "Honey, is everything okay? Like, I'm not noticing you laughing as much back there playing your games." And, "No, it's fine, Mom, it's fine." And I feel like I could sense something was wrong, and that I came and sat down in his room by him and I think I asked him, and then his eyes started to kind of gloss over, like, "Oh my God, yes, I'm fine," like, but I, no, he wasn't. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like, we ask them, I feel like as parents, we do a whole lot of asking, did you do your homework? Did you fill out your band paper? Did you turn in your band uniform? Did you do like a whole lot of that? And even though we slip in and I love you and we're always here for you and all of that, but how much did I ask him, is your heart okay? And I wish that I could go back and dive deeper into, are you really okay? Because obviously he was struggling, which was so weird, because if he was struggling with anxiety, I feel like, he would have band concerts and he'd be up on stage, and then he'd do solo and ensemble, and there was zero nerves. Like, so if you're struggling, and we're all so we were intuitive with each other. How did all of us miss it? That's the thing. Like, his sister, his dad, and my son-in-law were all like very in tune. And I remembered that all the band moms, my family, all my neighbors, the day that it happened, of course, everybody come running over, and everyone's like, if this can happen to Carl, this can happen to anyone. Like, oh my God. And I jumped on the phone to call all his friends right away, because I'm so like, do you guys know anything? Like, oh my God, no, he was the happiest dude in the group. And it's like, no. And, his friends were pale faced and throwing up. That's what I had gotten secondhand information because the school had held a big kind of a conference in the band room, kind of a griefing thing where parents and everybody joined, and it was just awful, like unbelievable. The band bus was on its way, and they had turned around and come back, and everybody was just so completely blindsided that it just was unbelievable. In hindsight, I feel like signs were that he did seem a little more quiet playing video games. But let me just say that that's normal teenage stuff, like you're not going to think anything's different about that. I mean,
Well,
otherwise everything was normally functioning and
oh yeah, I find it so interesting because again, a lot of us probably make assumptions, like is your child in his room with the door shut and never talking to you and never talking to his friends? But then how do we like yeah, there's not a perfect scenario. So it could
mm-mm.
be somebody completely don't expect it to happen to, and you said the word like impulsive.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily mean it's something that he had been planning for all like I don't know. I guess you're just proving that there's no specific path that somebody chooses. I just
No,
feel like it could be anybody.
absolutely. And I joined, of course. Okay, so right away, obviously just in a state of shock for so long. And it really took me a couple months before I joined Compassionate Friends of Suicide. And so I made a post and there, and I was just like, kind of shared quickly about how we had no clue and everything. I kind of was just saying to you how it's like totally like a perfect storm of, they say that if all the lights turn green, there's nothing there in that bad moment. Nobody calls, nobody texts, just the perfect opportunity for nothing to stop the situation. And that is exactly what happened to him. So I made a post, and you can't believe the amount of responses I got back that people were telling me that is mirrors their story 100%. Like, I have shared so many stories over the years on his Facebook page that totally these parents are like, what the heck happened? Like and that's the part where I was like, I felt like I just wanted to stand on a podium and be like, this can happen to anybody. Like, you don't know. Like, I was so freaked out that it was so like, he was the last person in the whole wide world that you would think could even do something like that. So I just was sitting there and I'm like, with my daughter, I remember I'm like, I got to do something. Like, I got to do something. Like, I don't know what it is, but so then first thing is the principal, we met with him from my son's high school, and he decided to have a concert for Carl at the Mill Pond in downtown Brighton. And the Brighton band played for him. And then like we had started Carl's foundation, and I just was not really with it, to be honest with you, but I did say a couple things at the microphone, and I just was saying that I'm going to try to choose to do something to help and get it out there, because it was so unbelievable, so painful, so unbelievable. And so that's how he had the concert. And then from there, like I started his foundation, and basically I started doing yellow ribbon at the Brighton High School, which is, for suicide prevention. And then that first fall, I spoke to the incoming freshman students, and I kind of did a write-up of everything I'm kind of sharing with you, that like he didn't come from a bad family. He wasn't on drugs, because I ordered a autopsy because I'm like, this is crazy. Like, maybe he was sneaking drugs, and this is so really unusual. I need to find these things out. And no, it was nothing like that. And He was also a gift of life. Like, they called us at 1 o'clock in the morning, the night of everything that happened, and they were able to recover and use tissue and tendons and things like that. And somebody did send me back this doesn't happen either, a thank you, that she was a grandma, and whatever they did, it helped her back. Whatever tissue or whatever, like, I didn't get to know the exact thing. They couldn't use his eyes, obviously, but because that was, something they had discussed. But that was a blessing that it helped somebody, even though it's horrific to think about. But when you think about that, it's kind of hard. But knowing that that was something good that came from it was really great. So yes, and then every year since 2019, I've been a huge advocate through the Brighton schools. Like at Maltby Middle School, we raised I raise funds through fundraisers when I'm going to have an event, and like we bought thousands and thousands of bracelets. And then for Maltby, I found this great mindfulness journal that's written by PhD, and found a deal online on Amazon, and then called a bookstore in Brighton, and then she worked with me and the author, and we got the books down to like $5 or something like that. And so the community helped me raise funds. There was over 1,000 books, and we were able to pass the books out, and then of course pens, and we put little gift bags together, like bracelets and candy and things, so that to make the table feel welcoming for kids to not be nervous and come up, and it's okay. um, if you want to read it, and take these things, it's good. And at the high school, we've had a lot of kids come up to our table, and like, we have a banner that runs along the front of the table. It's got a picture of my son. And I remember one day a young man was asking, who is that? And I'm like, that's my son. And my daughter's like, yeah, that's my brother. And they're just looking at us like, oh my God, I can't believe you're standing here. Like, and then kids are like, I knew Carl. And then they show me all the past bracelets, and they come up to my table, and they grab it's like a lot of things that are squishy, like things that can help their anxiety. And so I try to be open and loving and approachable, and just come on, here, calling them up, honey, here, did you want this? Like, just, and they love it. The kids love it. They do, and then my most recent thing was we created a t-shirt that through Custom Ink. I love Custom Ink, and I made it where it's 100 reasons to stay, because I've seen some other shirts similar to that going around. And so then I did the back of it, and wrote 100 reasons of things. They were quite expensive. It was cheaper for me to create a fundraiser. So then they were only $26 a piece, but then we donated 50 of them, and there's a care closet at the high school. So people don't have to feel like they even have to see us to like ask for a shirt or whatever. We just put those in there, and then some journals and pens and some other bracelets and things like that, so that people can just go grab them from the care closet. And I did Veterans Connect. I know it's not just veterans. The Veterans Connect in Brighton had a thing where they invited the public, and then we also joined them, and I spoke about Carl there. And I'm on the Livingston County Mental Health Board. I've been on there since 22, I think. I sit as a board member and try to do mental health. That's more about the money and things like that. It's more, but just to do my part. And then the Howell Courthouse had a mental health event. Like, I don't know, I've done a few things, and I'm not like this awesome, public speaker. But let me tell you, this has changed the game for me. Like, just like, for instance, at the when I spoke to the 500 freshmen, oh my God, up on stage, I had my sister-in-law, my daughter, and my other sister with me, because they were hanging on to my shirt so that I wouldn't get all, I was it's very hard, but I just kept imagining my son standing in the back corner, and it's like, this is for you, honey. Like, oh my God, if I know that when I get to heaven one day that, God and Carl, and they're going to be like, you did help somebody. I try to share a lot. I don't want it to be sad, but let's face it, this is a sad topic. This is a hard topic. People, one thing I think is that I used to come from a place where this would never happen to my family. When I heard other people talk about it, for instance, in 2018, in April, my daughter's old friend from school, her boyfriend died by suicide. And I was just like, you guys, it is never that bad. And I remembered saying to them in many of our car rides that, boy, if anything ever happened to one of you, that is just the worst thing that could happen to me. The worst thing. And my worst fear came true. I was just like, ah. But I also sit in a place of ignorance because back then I was like, something was going on at home. I came from a place of judgment, and I regret that. Not in a mean way, but that's because I was ignorant to it. I thought for sure, like, yeah, something, it's got to be home life. It's got to be. But then when you spin it around on my story, it's like, no, it, no, it can be. Somebody could be struggling and you just don't even know it, because I feel like the fear of flying a freak flag is more awful, and being judged and the shame and all of that keeps people from speaking up. They would rather sit with it. And I also know that there was some type of bullying going on with him. When he was younger, he wore glasses, and he was in 7th grade. Somebody threw his glasses out of the bus and he punched him in the nose, and he was crying after that because he felt so bad. He was just like, but the kid was a real bully on the bus, is what the rest of the kids told me. And so he was scared he was going to be in trouble. But the bus driver's like, Miss Nagy, honestly, if that were my kid, I would have punched him in the nose too. But so there was that. And then also I saw some text messages where because he had his old phone that he used just on Wi-Fi, and then his Samsung phone. And I went back through and saw some text messages, and there was banter back and forth saying, just kill yourself. So, kids were joking about stuff like that. But I remembered one text from Carl saying, dude, it's not funny anymore. Like, you know, so then he was going to join jazz band. I just try to think of the things that stand out to me now. He was all down for it. Played the bass guitar. I went and got him a really small amp to take for him and his friend Brad to go join jazz band through the high school, through his band teacher. And he was so pumped up about it. And then he came home and never spoke of it again. And on the car ride home with the boys, I'm like, guys, like, so what happened? Why did you just completely drop it? And then Brad said that some seniors can be mean. And that's all I ever got out of it. They were like tight-lipped about, I think that something happened. So I think another time he came home and it looked like somebody popped him in the lip. When I would ask him, he just wouldn't say anything. So I think other things were going on, and it was causing him great anxiety. And I think that he thought somewhere inside him, like his dad's an avid hunter and he's a machinist and he does manly man stuff. And Carl was completely different. He didn't want to go hanging out on the boat in the lake and get suntan. His desires were other things. He did like to bike ride, but it was different. So he was so different from his dad. And I just think that there were factors. There were things that were in play that he decided that He wanted to just keep it to himself and not share it. And then it's unbelievable because he shared things with me and his sister, so he would share things. So I don't understand. And I know this is what hurts his sister too, and all of us for that matter, is why would you not tell us? If you're suffering that bad, why? I struggle with that so bad, like feeling as a failure. Like I literally remembered it's like cleaning his room. These are the things that I think about, and I wrote about a couple times because I think I wrote and shared through a lot of my grief online on my page. And I just was like, you're going through your kid's room and, picking up the empty Cheez-Its box saying, why can't you pick up your stuff? And like, you're doing the laundry and you're doing all those mundane things that you just kind of becomes repetitive. And then it's like, now I hang on to his pillows, and if I mean, I'm not sure what I could go back and change, to be honest, because I mean, I was maybe a helicopter mom in a sense that I just love my kids so much. They meant everything to me. And I honestly just worked for them to be happy. And I raised them exactly the same, my daughter and my son. And I don't know where he got lost. And I really struggle with that because my daughter, I think the other side of it is the smartphones and the social media, because I read this um, article by Gene Twenge from San Diego State University that talked about as soon as iPhones were jumped in sales by 56% in 2011, and so did suicide. And it's like there's such a huge correlation. There's online bullying. He was on all those WhatsApp apps, all the games, and I remember stressing to him, you don't know who those people are. You've got to be careful. There's hidden dangers. And I wasn't even aware of all of the 100% of all the dangers. Now the evidence is out there, like incredibly, how much it's linked to anxiety and mental health. And I think that I didn't limit his time on social media and all of that. And I think in hindsight, I would totally change that. I would change that. That would be something I would do different.
But there's no parenting manual. What you said was interesting, how both your children, you raise them the same. Everybody you talk to says that, and we'll all laugh about it. Like, our kids are so different and they were
Uh-huh.
raised by the same parents. Like, everybody says that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think what you said about, I don't like saying that you were ignorant, but so many of us just, we are like, we try our best, and that's all that we can do. And I'm sure that hindsight has got to be one of the most difficult things, because you can sit here and say, if I had done this, if this was different, if that was different. But you
Right.
also sound like you shared so much love with him, and he spoke to you. Again, he didn't shut you out. He said things to you. So it doesn't match the
Mm-hmm.
judgment that a lot of us make. And I think it is easy to judge when you haven't been through something. But I just, I could never say, you can't act like that. You can't think like that,
Oh,
because
exactly.
we have no idea how it feels. So, of course, you're going to go back. I mean, it's totally not the same. But even thinking about my younger son, like, I look back and I say, oh, we should have known that he had muscular dystrophy, because he didn't like to walk very far. He wanted me to hold him all the time. He conserved his energy. It's very easy for me to say I should have known.
Right.
But would that change where I am today? No, probably not.
Yeah. I just think that those things aren't on our radar, and I call it suffering. And I think that we all have some kind of suffering, and I don't know how other people feel about this statement I'm about to make, but I do believe We all have some type of suffering in that God brings something, He brings a blessing from it. Even as hard as it is, the blessing that has come out of my tragedy, our family's tragedy, is that I know we've helped people because I've had moms message me. I've had multiple people message me on my messenger, sharing stories, not names, because you put this out there. So and so came to me because his friend was talking about it. And so I know I've helped people. And even though there are days where I feel like, okay, you know, am I really reaching anybody? Like, but then it's like, you're sowing seeds, like what you're doing with your advocacy of spreading your message, Christine's message, other moms and other people's messages, your platform. It's you're sowing seeds to help people in understanding different tragedies and things like this, because they're there and they happen, and we all have some kind of suffering, and it's just that, what are we going to do with it? In fact, oh my gosh, there has been a countless suicides in Brighton. I can't even tell you. They just keep happening. One just happened in October. Okay, so back to the impulsive side of it, because if you think about this too, this is for kids, all kids. The kid that impulsively gets behind the wheel drunk, the kid who does anything dangerous, diving into a shallow end and they break their neck. Like, there is a lot of things there because their prefrontal cortex isn't developed till roughly 25 years of age. And so the ability for them to understand consequences isn't there. And boys mature much slower than girls do. And it's just easy. Like, there was a Harvard study that I was reading that it's like they can make that impulsive choice in 5 minutes. And it's like, if nothing stops them, they can just make that quick choice. And it's like the gentleman who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. He ended up living. And he said as soon as he jumped, he instantly regretted it. But of course, you can't take it back. And there was no opportunity to take it back. There was no understanding in that moment. And so that's just such a huge part of it, like that emotional intelligence. And that's kind of an important thing for kids, I think. And people lack it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a very good point about younger people, but you said something earlier that I wrote down here, fear of flying a freak flag. I
Yeah.
think that that's adults too. I mean, I just heard a story today where I was at a networking meeting and there was these are business people, and someone was concerned that someone was judging them and that's why they didn't want to do business with them. And I'm like,
Hmm.
we are adults, so
Yeah.
we all think that, we all have that fear, like, what is that person going to say?
Yeah.
Even being on a podcast, if I show my face, I mean, I said it when I got on here, I'm like, look at me, I don't have my hair done, and not that that was fear, but it's like,
Hmm.
what are people going to say about me when I put this out there, or what is my voice going to sound like, or Connie has never met me in person, how am I going to sound to her? You think about those things even as an adult, and it's,
Yes.
yeah, I think something that keeps popping in my head is safe. Like, you are creating a safe space. And actually, my niece that I talked about going to Ohio State, I had her on. She's 17 and she was just sharing about life, and I just really wanted her to be on the podcast, and she was just sharing about life and just like thinking about how she perceives things. I mean, you're making me think a lot about her. Like, what is it like with the kids in your class, and what is it like with the pressures of getting ready for college? So I mean, it's real, everything that you're saying. And one of her big, because at the end, which I'll have you do in a few minutes, is I say, what is some advice? What are some things you would want to tell other 17-year-olds? And she said, I would want to know that everything's going to be okay. And she was mentioning that mainly in relation to her parents had been divorced, and she lives with her mom and her brother lives with her dad. And so there's some uncertainty that has been in her life. And she said, I would like people to recognize that they should remind their loved ones that they're going to be okay. It's okay. You're going to get through this. You're going to be okay. And I thought that was so simple, but
That's
it seems,
huge, though.
yeah, it seems so relatable to what you're saying, creating a safe space, reminding people that they're okay.
Yes, absolutely. That's just a big part, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's
Hmm.
okay if your skin's not perfect and you have acne. And I think one of the biggest things that I used to tell both my kids too is high school is a 4 short years. You'll see this is not your whole life. The things that you're feeling, like not everybody's gonna like you. Like I try to put all these warnings out there, like you're gonna be the odd man out, like people are gonna be not nice sometimes. But you have to be okay with yourself, and that in the end, be a good person, because that's what matters. And it's not easy for a kid though, because being judged, like today, it's not where, say, in the older school days, where the bullying and the picking on kids stayed at school. It follows them home. Now it is on Instagram and all the different media outlets, and they don't get to leave it at school. It's with them. It's just hard in that, geez, you don't have to have it all figured out. Like that perception we pound into kids' heads, like not so much us, but like my son in law and daughter said that in high school, how much they just beat it into the kids' heads. Like, if you don't go to college, you're a loser. When it's like, they almost bully you into, this is how you have to do it. And if you don't do it this way, you're going to be no good. Bull. That's not a way to help a kid, because who has it figured out at 18,
Especially at
17?
18. Yeah, 17, 18. Right. We expect you to
Yes.
have your whole plan by that time.
Yeah, no way. And I just, that's just something that they have to know, that it's okay. It's okay if you
It's
change your
okay.
mind 10 times, because you're not going to have it all figured out. It's just not the way that it is. And oh boy.
No,
And
and we've all made mistakes and
for
we've
sure.
learned from them. I mean, I make mistakes every single day.
For sure. And not to be so hard on ourselves. Cut yourself some slack. You don't have to have it all together. And that it's okay if it's not okay on a day. Like, I think the biggest thing is also to share, find someone to
Mhm.
talk about how you're feeling, because it halves the load, it halves the burden. It doesn't maybe all of a sudden fix it, but talk to someone about how you're feeling, and you're going to be surprised at how many times you hear, me too. Me too. Even in many insecurities, like in these days now, I kind of find humor in my mistakes and my insecurities. I sort of now say them out loud, like I'll kind of make fun of myself, because you have to. And then other people will chime in and be like, me too. And had I not done that, maybe that other person's sitting with the same thing. Like, I hate my freckles. I wish my skin, like I wish I was pretty enough. And it's just, that's not what matters. It's what's in your heart. And God loves each and every one of us, who we are. And we all have a purpose. And everyone's purpose doesn't look like everybody else's. And even if it's not something great and incredible, it's still awesome. And the world needs you. Like, that's a takeaway.
I have a few things I want to touch on. First, I mean, gosh, I can't thank you enough for sharing all of this because it's got to be extremely difficult, but people need to hear everything you're saying, everything. But I want to talk about you, your husband, your daughter, your son-in-law. I want to talk about your relationships there since all of this happened.
Oh, oh, okay. So I had told you that other people in Brighton have lost kids to suicide, and those people have gotten divorced. I remembered the very day that this was happening, and the cops and were searching through our house. And of course, they have to do this big investigation. And we're all sitting in the backyard. And my husband right away said, well, we're going to stick through this, all of us. We're going to stick through this. And my daughter was in denial because she never did get to see him. And she, in a way, felt like he was still going away at band camp. She said,
Mhm.
Mom, it's weird. I can't explain it. And I remembered her, Andrew is her husband. And he was like, Lex was 5 months pregnant. And he's like, you guys, we're never going to be okay. That was his impression running through his head. And so my daughter was stunned and still bewildered. And me and my husband, of course, were in shock for the longest time, but we did grieve different. I remembered that this is kind of a huge part because this can lead to divorce for a lot of people. A lot of people want to start blaming because one person is a fixer and the other person needs to feel it and talk about it. That was a lot of between me and my husband is like, but as a group, what helped us is we never stayed another night in my house that we lived in. We immediately moved in with my daughter and her husband because we couldn't be there. And basically, the four of us talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, cried about it, and just shared and shared and shared. And we did all this. I went into this detective mode. All of us did, in fact, like we were going through his computer and we're going through his coat pockets, but we just all talked about it. And I feel like that is the best way to start the journey of healing. You gotta talk about it. If you sit with it, it's like the one counselor, the body keeps the score. If you don't, it'll come out in physical symptoms and in other issues. So it's real important to deal with it. So that's what we did is we just talked and talked and talked and just kept trying to find resolution. And then there's just like nothing we could come to that except for like the perfect storm. But like that's where we were with that. And we are also 100% so close today. We all lean on God more. And my stepmom died 2 months after my son, and then my husband lost his best friend. It's like things happen, suffering, back to what I'm talking about. And it just, we were empathetic before, but we are so much more empathetic today. And I'll tell you, like we're in the Kroger grocery store, and it's like, geez, you just honestly don't know what people are going through. Like looking at somebody who's irritated pushing a cart in another section of the store. You don't know that they just lost a parent or they're dealing with their family being diagnosed with ALS or there's just things. Everybody's got something, and to be more kind and empathetic to people's situations and just serve each other. Like that is the thing. Like one of the hematology doctors, this was the best thing ever. Like we're all tired from work and because we deal with the cancer patients, and she just said, we're here to serve. And I said, you know what, that is exactly it. This is our job here. God wants us to help each other get to heaven. Like that's just my bottom line. Do what it takes to get through.
It's just it's crazy that I didn't start our conversation saying, "This is what I want you to talk about, and this is what I'm trying to do with this podcast." To an extent, but you touched on so many things that are important and that seem to be repetitive. And one is yes, the belief, the faith in God, and the turning to God when you are suffering. And I struggled with that soon after my son's diagnosis. I grew up Catholic. I always said I was religious, or I followed all of that, but I didn't feel very strongly about my relationship with God and my belief system. And I struggled with it after, because you do think, why does this 5-year-old diagnosed with this horrible
Right.
disease that's
Why
progressive?
me?
And
Right.
yeah, and you do
Mm-hmm.
think that, but I will say over the last maybe 5-6 years, it's been a very important part of my life to be grateful, to try to have this relationship with God, to pray more, to read the Bible, to attend services, to bring it to my children, to try to learn more and grow more. And although I don't say this is a podcast dedicated to faith, it
Yeah,
always comes up. And so I really appreciate you saying how important that is. It seems to always come up. And I even say back to what I said at the very beginning, meeting Christine was a God wink to me.
yes.
And when I say that, it's like God places people in your life,
I'm telling you,
even meeting you. Yeah.
absolutely. Your, your service with this podcast is going to help people because there's other moms just like you. And I'll tell you, people say, are you mad at God? And no, I was never, not once mad at him, but I did fear, were you with him in his last moments? Because what I feel like happens is the devil was whispering on one side of him and Jesus was there with him. Satan's voice was louder and he wasn't capable of, his voice was louder. And
In that impulsive moment.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. He was weak. He didn't get sleep. Think about this. He wasn't sleeping well because per his friends, anxiety can come from that. Could have been coming from his medicine because he complained of stomach aches. Like, so a whole bunch of that. But it's like, was I mad at God? No, I wasn't. I was more scared. Did he make it to heaven? Like, I got really fearful of that. Like, but then a lot of things and lots of things I've shared says, yes, it's like any sin we do. I think God judges us on an individual basis once they get there. And that, are you saying that if you run a stoplight or a red light that no, you're not going to heaven? Like, we don't judge that. And a lot of scripture backs up that, there are people, some of his disciples, Judas died by suicide, the one who cheated him with the silver. Yeah, I remembered that. My hardest moment was when we bought another house that was just blocks away from my daughter because I had to stay by her. I called it our grieving house because we needed just to go reprieve and go, like, we couldn't live with them forever. We were with them for 6 months, but it's like, okay, we got to get our own space. As hard as that was to do, we did it. But I was on my knees in the bathroom. The one day I remembered my husband and I were at Kroger and a song came on the radio. That was like our song, because we like to dance too, my kids and I, and we would put, do you remember? Like songs like that. So different songs, we would dance. And so a song came on the Kroger and I just about thought I was going to die. I'm like, the pain that pounded through my insides was so physical. I had to get out of the store. And then I got home and I remembered that this was the pivotal time for me, that I just remembered that I felt like I was going to die. Like, I remember I staring at the bathroom light. I was by myself and I'm just like, I am not going to survive this without your help. Like, I feel like I'm dying and physically inside. Like, it was so hard. And like, I'm telling you, if you don't have God, I don't know how you survive these things. I don't know you. If you have no faith, like, I don't know how, like, how do you do it? Like, that's the only thing. And I'm thankful for that. And I tell you, it's just like, I think that was my worst point. And then my daughter had bought me a picture that was Psalms. He'll cover you with his feathers and under his wings you will find refuge. And I read that every day in my bathroom. And I was just like, it's hard. Still miss him every day. But my goal is to continue to keep helping. Like, May is Mental Health Month is coming up, and I have 600 more journals and bracelets and all kinds of goodies to give to the kids at the school, and that'll be my next event. And I'm just on a mission to keep letting kids know, like, try in my own way. Like, I know some kids still see my stuff because, like, they like it, they comment on it. So I know they're seeing it. So I try to share stuff like it's okay and stories of example. And like, I'll continue to be there at events. And I just hope that I can reach a couple people with my efforts, because like, what else?
Well, I think you're definitely reaching people. It's amazing that you've turned all of that into what you've turned it into. I want you to tell us more about your organization. So if people are listening and they want to know where they can go, I want you to share that. And then also, so the book that you're talking about, what is the name of that again? It's a journal, you're saying?
Yes. Yep. And it
What's
was,
it called? Mindfulness or something?
yep, mindfulness for
Okay.
teens.
For teens.
And
Okay. Because I
yeah,
definitely want to put that in our notes, in our show notes, in case anyone's looking for it. I think that so many people will learn from everything that you are sharing. If they've been through something like this, if they are fearful that something like this might happen, or even if they're going through something completely unrelated, but they don't want to feel like they're alone, I think everything you are doing is incredible. I, I, I'm just so respectful of you and what you and your family are doing to take such an awful situation, a tragedy, all of this suffering, and try to find how you can help others. I wrote down serving like 4 times. I think you're very right that I just strongly believe we are meant to help one another and serve one another. And the fact that you're creating this safe place and encouraging people to reach out and speak and share their stories, I think is amazing. And I pray for you and your family, and I pray that you can
I pray
continue
for
to be
you.
successful doing this. Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to allow you to share about your organization. And then I just had one question before you
Yeah,
share
for
about
sure.
that. What do you think Carl would say? The Carl you love, the Carl you remember, what do you think he would say about all of the things you're doing?
I think he would tell me, Mom, you're doing such a good job, and hug me. He used to come up behind me and do these play things where he'd tickle the backs, like my shoulders up here. And then he'd speak to me in this French voice. And he, Mother. And it was so funny playing with me, but I know that that's what he would be like. I'm so proud of you. I just know that. And I can't wait to see him again. I do see him in a couple of my dreams, and I try to hang on to those moments after I wake up, but it's like I'll dream that he's still here, and it's like, wow. But I know he would be so proud of me, and he would tell me that, Mom, you are helping people. You are helping. Maybe you can't see it, but one day you'll understand. One day we will understand the meaning and why we all were on the path we're on. And I know that one day God will show us what that is, even though it's hard to sit in it. And another thing I would want to say is that it does take a good amount of years before you see the color in the world again, because that is a big thing. I know that a good 6 years for me is where I finally felt like I could hear the birds sing again. And it's like I feel like it's like a tunnel. It was pretty black and gray. That's the way my world felt. Your brain, your body, just your mind has to rewire. A life without your child, you are wired, and it's in our memory banks that you have 2 children, and that has you've built your life and your world around them, and then to just have one drop absent, gone, taken like that, you can't just stop your mind and heart. And that part of it is you just don't get over it. So
No.
um it does take a good amount of years, and that I would say to any married couple, like, let the other person feel the way they need to feel, and like just sit with them. Like, sometimes a marriage it can be 50-50, it can be 80-20. When you're 80 and the other's 20, just be there for them, and like just help each other through it is just a big deal. And yes, I think Carl would be very proud of us. I,
Yes, I would have to guess. I would have to guess that too. And you know what? It's interesting. Connie, you shared a few things with me before we got on here saying this is just to help you understand me a little bit more. And I quickly looked through a couple of your blogs, and one of them you did write, Show Me the Way. And I thought that was very interesting because that's the name of this podcast. So I again, God wink. So I think it was
yes.
just very timely and important for you to be on this. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I think there's so many people that will relate or will feel like, wow, okay, there's somebody else that I could seek out. So if somebody was after this podcast wanting to find more information about your organization or more info about you, where would they go?
I'm on Facebook. It's Carl Nagy Foundation, and then we're on Instagram, and then on Carl Nagy Foundation, we have a website that I created, and I made a page. And Wixsite's cool because you make your own page, and then it's pretty user friendly. And I have some things, some stories. I've written a lot about my grief since 2019. There's different videos that I have on Instagram, but most everything, like a lot of the information from our events at the high schools, is all on Carl Nagy Foundation on Facebook.
Okay, great. And you did share that with me, so I will put that in the notes, but I definitely wanted to give you the opportunity to share that. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just anybody out there who's struggling, just know that stay another day, and you got to talk to somebody. That's the biggest thing. You got to talk to somebody. And if it's not in your family, find somebody, a counselor, a teacher, uh, anybody, and just let it out, and just don't suffer in silence. Like, that's just the biggest thing. Like, you're worthy. The world needs you, and you have a purpose. And like, please stay. That's,
Please
you know,
stay. Yes, that's two simple words, but you're right. You're spot on. Wow, I just appreciated this so much. I'm so grateful that you were able to share all that you did. I think it was a great introduction from Christine because you're doing exactly what I want my guests to do, to share their story, but also give us practical advice and their perspective. And you did it throughout the whole time. Generally, I'll say at the end, what's one piece of advice? But you gave us so much throughout the whole episode, and I appreciate that. And definitely, listeners, pass this on to people, pass it on to younger people, pass it on to anyone you think needs to hear that they're not alone and that they can talk to somebody, they can reach out. I was going to say that earlier, like Connie said, it doesn't have to be your mom and dad, it could be somebody else that's in your life, but don't be afraid to share when you are going through something. And it's a very good lesson to all of us, not just teenagers. It's a very good lesson to adults as well, that there's people out there that want to help. There's organizations that want to share. And yeah, I'm so grateful that you were a guest on the show. Thank you so much for all of the
thank you.
information.
Thank you for having me. And it's a blessing. It's hard slash meaningful for me. So thank you for having me. And I hope it helps somebody. Honestly, the bottom line, like, I appreciate you having me and even listening, because it's hard. It's real hard. So thank you.
Of course, yeah, and yeah, it's got to be. I was thinking, I'm kind of putting her on the spot, but your voice needed to be heard. It needs to be heard when you're speaking, and I think you were saying it earlier, like I'm not the greatest speaker, but when you speak from the heart and when you are being authentic, you're an amazing speaker to me because you're so real. You can get a polished person to stand up in front of you that doesn't feel real, and you don't get as much out of the conversation. So sharing your authentic self, keep doing that. Keep doing
Well,
it as
thank
long
you.
as your energy allows you to do so. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but keep doing what you're doing. You're making a world of difference.
So awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me for the Show Me the Way podcast. I truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. I hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If this episode touched your heart, don't forget to leave a quick review, as it will help us reach and motivate more people. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.